Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E, number 9, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Alberto Ponticelli. Last issue was a whole thing of finding the son of Frankenstein, and the bride of Frankenstein left S.H.A.D.E, and yeah, it doesn't really tie in that much to this issue, but this issue picks up as basically a tie-in to Animal Man. I mean, they're both written by Jeff Lemire, so it makes sense, but still, we have Frankenstein called in to Shade City, and Father Time basically tells him, hey, new mission, there's a missing superhuman. His name's Buddy Baker, aka the Animal Man, and he's like a D-list hero. He hasn't done anything that big, but a few days ago, his entire family dropped off the map, and we don't know exactly where they are. There was also a detective named Detective Carl Crenshaw, who was last seen talking to the family. He's also gone missing. And when the Baker house was investigated, there were a bunch of dead animals all around. So, yeah, this is weird, and it's weird enough for S.H.A.D.E. So maybe go in and find out what's going on. And Frankenstein says, yeah, all right, by the way, when I'm done with this, we're going to have a talk about how you handled the whole my son and wife thing, because I might actually have to take a leave of absence. And he's like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. So they go, and then Father Time's like, if he tries to leave, he's not. I am not going to let him leave. So they arrive at the last known location of Buddy's family, which was his mother-in-law's farmhouse, and they hear and feel something very wrong going on. So they head into the woods nearby the house, and it's Nina and Frankenstein, by the way, and they just talk a little bit about how Father Time has some questionable methods of getting work done. And Frankenstein questions whether or not it's actually for the greater good or if it's just for his own motives. But as they come across this riverside, they find the body of Detective Crenshaw, which has just been swollen up and is just this disgusting mess of a human, which fits in line exactly with what we saw in Animal Man. But as he's reaching around, and he's like, maybe Animal Man did this, maybe something else, I don't know. There's a whole lot of flies around it, though, so he's been dead for a little bit. So then Nina comes up and wants to take some tissue samples, but as she's going to grab a tissue sample, she immediately starts speaking with the voice of the Rot, which is, of course, the being that actually inhabits Crenshaw right now. And he's like, who's touching our meal? And Frankenstein pulls Nina off, and we see the head of Crenshaw detach from the body and then sprout legs and start crawling along like the Thing. And it's like, who disturbs our feast? Yes, this is a meal for the Rotlings and me. And we see a whole bunch of smaller little creatures start just coming off from Crenshaw's body, like made up of his flesh, and start moving towards Frankenstein. And Frankenstein's like, okay, we need to deal with this, because this isn't science or magic. This is like some primeval nature that's come back into the world. And Crenshaw's head leaps up and bites Frankenstein's arm, and is just like, yes, good, you will become a new vessel for the Rot. And wait a minute, you don't have any rot in you at all. What in the heck are you, man? And he's like, I'm forbidden science. I am unflesh. I am Frankenstein, as he shoves his sword through Crenshaw's head, effectively actually killing him. But it isn't exactly killing him, because, the Rot goes off of dead things, so he just comes back with a whole bunch of smaller little rotlings, and immediately Frankenstein's like, okay, we need more weapons. The sword's not going to do this. I need fire. So Father Time teleports in a flamethrower, to which Frankenstein just unleashes hell on all of these rotlings, and they all scurry into the river to try to put themselves out. But just when you think the situation's out of control, the Rot then spreads to a bunch of fish that were in the water, and they start popping out with fangs and teeth and whatnot, and start crawling after Frankenstein, along with all these flies and the original rotlings, to which Frankenstein is like, Father, we have a code 666. The dead are walking the earth. I'm going to need the biggest bomb we got. So they are he's like, are you sure? I can call in the creature commandos. We can get them in there. And it's like, no, no, no. Anybody else who arrives here is just a liability that can be turned. We need to nuke this place. So he calls in what's called a black bomb to the location, and he's like, are you sure? Like, Nina's in there. And he's like, yeah, no, I'll take care of it. Just launch the black bomb. So Father Time basically pulls out the nuclear launch codes, pulls out a black bomb to the location, and it essentially atomizes all living tissue within a certain range, which, destroys all the rotlings because they were still technically life. But Frankenstein shields Nina from the blast, and he's actually immune to the effects because he isn't technically living. So yeah, that whole thing happens. The site is essentially nuked, and Frankenstein's like, maybe the things my wife said were right. Maybe I am some level of an abomination. And Nina, grateful for the save, turns and it's just like, you know what? You aren't a man, Frankenstein. You're so much more. And then she places a hand on his hand. He smiles, and they sit just looking at the now evaporated river and seared landscape around them. So yeah, that's that. That's the, I guess, tie into Animal Man shortly. I like it. I think it was a nice little thing of like, it just felt like Jeff Lemire, he believed that he left this one little loose end over on this side of the story, and he's like, I'm writing another book. I can just go ahead and wrap it up in there real quick, while also furthering that book's character development. It was good. It was good all around. I really have nothing bad to say about it. And if you've been reading Animal Man, it fits in perfectly with where we left that stuff. Like, this was just solid from any point that you view it. The only downside I would really say about it is that, honestly, it feels like it could have gone longer. Like the rot in Animal Man is such this like monstrous force that can never be defeated. And yet here it's like, oh, we just atomized all life and that did it. And like, I understand S.H.A.D.E's got a lot more tech to their side than like Animal Man does. So it makes sense that they would actually have something to deal with it. But it just felt like this was more than a one-issue thing. So maybe it is. I don't actually know whether or not this story continues on to future parts of the book. Hopefully it does, but yeah, no, it's solid all around. I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's actually really, really good, and I would suggest for if you're reading any of the Animal Man stuff, this is a perfect little thing that you can just slot in the middle and not lose a single thing out of it.